Are chord inversions that use black keys more difficult to play? This is a really great question that I got in a comment to my last video, which was on using chord inversions to make the basic rhythm patterns sound more interesting. And like most things in piano, the answer is yes and no. And because this is not just a straightforward answer, I thought I would create a video to explain the context of where I'm coming from and to demonstrate what I'm talking about on the piano. Now, it's a really common assumption that the chords that have black notes are going to be more difficult to play. But as a matter of fact, sometimes the chords with black notes are easier to play because of the way that they fall under the hand. For example, if I were to play what's considered the easiest chord, a C major chord, that is a C, E, and G, these are all white keys. But notice what my hand has to do in order for me to play these white keys. I have to curl my hand up so that all three fingers, which are different sizes, end up hitting the piano at exactly the same time, right? But now let's just move up a step to a D major chord. A D major chord has an F sharp in the middle. And already look at the position of my hand. The chord that has a black note in the middle actually follows a lot more easily under my hand. I can relax my hand a lot more because with that black note being under my middle finger and a little bit further away from the rest of the notes, I can actually rest my hand a little bit more when I want to play it. Right? So the only way that playing this black note is more difficult is just in the fact that the black note is a little bit more narrow than the white key. So it does take a little bit more precision when you are reaching for that black key. But in terms of chords that have a black key in the middle are actually pretty easy to play. They're actually pretty comfortable. So the first part of the answer to this question is no. Playing chords with black notes in them are not always more difficult to play. Sometimes they can be easier to play. And so examples of these easier chords would be D major, E major, A major. And then if we wanted to go into the minor chords, C minor, F minor, and G minor. So now let's talk about the other half of the answer, which is times when playing black keys are actually more difficult. The only time that I have found that black keys are more difficult to play are when they are meant to be played with your shorter fingers, mostly your thumb, right? So let's go back to our example of D major. Even though D major started in its root position as being very easy to play, if I wanted to change that inversion to maybe the first inversion where I take the D and move it on top, now we have an example of a chord where the black note is supposed to be played with arguably my shortest finger, my thumb, right? This is when chords can get really difficult to play, when the black note is played with your thumb. But I have a bit of a workaround for this. If you're interested in playing an inversion of D, rather than playing this inversion here, I recommend playing this inversion here. These are the exact same notes as D major, but in a different order, so that your baby finger reaches for the black key rather than your thumb. You might find this to be an inversion that's easier to play. The same principle applies to other chords that might begin on a black key. For example, B flat major is a chord that is played with a B flat, a D, and an F. In its root position, it is very unnatural to play because your shortest finger, your thumb, is reaching all the way up to the B flat. But we can find our way around this problem by finding an inversion that works better for us. So for example, rather than playing a B flat in its root position, maybe what I'll try doing is this next inversion where my baby finger reaches for the B flat instead. Now you can see the space between my second and my fifth finger is much more natural, and my thumb naturally falls on the D. Let's try another inversion and see if that is equally comfortable. The next inversion up looks like this. And here we have another example of a chord where the black note is actually under my longest finger. So this is actually very comfortable to play. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm not going to go through all the examples of chords and their inversions that you might want to try out. But my basic point is, one, don't be afraid of chords just because they have black keys. Sometimes having black keys can actually make them easier to play. And two, if you do encounter a chord with black keys that feels uncomfortable to play, experiment with the inversions. Chances are there is a version of that chord that feels more natural under your hand. Anyways, thanks for your question, and I hope this helps. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out in the comments below. Take care.